The worst part wasn't that he saw it. It wasn't even that he read it. It was the way he looked at me after. Because in that moment, I knew. Not thought. Not feared. Knew. Everything was over. It didn't happen during a fight. It didn't happen during some dramatic confrontation. It happened on a normal night. That's what makes it stay with me. Because if something had already been wrong, if we had been arguing, if things had been falling apart, I could have blamed it on that. But we weren't. We were fine. Or at least, I thought we were. We were sitting on the couch, close but not really touching, watching something neither of us was paying attention to. The TV filled the silence the way it had been doing more and more lately. Ethan had my phone. That wasn't unusual. We didn't have strict rules about that kind of thing. We knew each other's passwords. We trusted each other, or at least, he trusted me. I'm just going to look something up, he said absently, already unlocking it. Yeah, go ahead, I replied, not even thinking. That was my first mistake. Because if I had thought about it, even for a second, I would have remembered. The messages, the conversation I hadn't closed, the one I told myself I'd deal with later. But I didn't think about it. And by the time I did, it was too late. Hey, Ethan said. Just one word. But something about it made my chest tighten instantly. Yeah? I asked, turning slightly toward him. What's this? I felt it before I saw it. That drop in my stomach. That sudden, sharp awareness. And then I looked. The screen was open. The conversation was right there. No hiding it, no minimizing it. Every message, every word. Exposed. My chest tightened so fast it almost hurt. Ethan, I started. But I didn't know what I was going to say. Because there wasn't anything to say. Not anything that would fix this. He didn't look at me right away. He kept reading, scrolling slowly, carefully, like he was trying to understand it all. And I sat there, completely still. Because I knew the longer he read, the worse it got. It's not what it looks like, I said anyway. The words felt automatic, empty. Even as I said them, I knew how they sounded. Ethan let out a quiet breath. Not angry, not loud, just tired. Then finally, he looked up at me, and everything inside me dropped. Because there was no anger in his eyes, no yelling, no shock. Just something else. Something I wasn't ready for. Understanding. Like he had just put something together. Like he had suspected it. And now he had proof. How long? He asked. His voice was calm. Steady. Too steady. What? I said, even though I knew exactly what he meant. How long has this been going on? My mind started racing. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I didn't know which answer would hurt less. The truth? Or another lie? Not long, I said quietly. The second it left my mouth, I regretted it, because I could see it in his face. That small shift, like something inside him just clicked. Don't do that, he said. Not loud, not harsh, but firm. Don't lie to me now. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Because he wasn't asking anymore. He was giving me one last chance, and I knew it. 3 months, I said. The truth felt heavier than I expected. Like saying it out loud made it permanent. Ethan nodded slowly. Not surprised. Like he had already guessed. Who is he? He asked. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to tell him, but because saying his name felt like crossing another line. Like making it more real than it already was. Ryan, I said finally. Ethan's expression didn't change, but something about the way he looked at me did. "And what is this?" he asked, lifting the phone slightly. I looked at the screen, at the messages, at the version of myself I had been in those conversations. I barely recognized her. "I don't know," I said. And for the first time, that wasn't a lie. Because whatever I thought it was, it didn't feel like enough anymore. Ethan studied me for a long moment. And then he said something I wasn't expecting. I thought I was imagining it. My chest tightened. "What?" I asked. "The distance," he said. "The way you've been." I looked down. I kept telling myself it was nothing, he continued, that I was overthinking it. Every word hit harder than the last. But I guess I wasn't. That silence that followed, it wasn't empty. It was full of everything that had been building without me noticing. "I didn't mean for it to happen," I said quietly. And I meant it. At least, I thought I did. Because it hadn't started like this. It had started small. A conversation. A connection. Something that felt easy. Something that didn't feel like it mattered. Until it did. Ethan let out a small breath. "No one ever does," he said. And that was it. No yelling, no accusations, just acceptance. And somehow, that was worse, because it meant he had already decided. "What happens now?" I asked. My voice felt smaller than I expected, like I already knew the answer. Ethan didn't respond right away. He just looked at me. And for a second, I saw it. The version of him that might have stayed. The version that might have tried. But it disappeared just as quickly. "I don't think there's anything left to fix," he said. And just like that, it was over. The next few days felt unreal. Ethan didn't argue, didn't bring it up again. He just pulled away. Quietly, like he had already accepted it. He started sleeping in the guest room, stopped texting me during the day, stopped asking how I was, stopped looking at me the same way. And that's when it really hit me. I would have rather he was angry. Because anger means something is still there. But this felt like nothing. A week later, he packed a bag. Not everything, just enough. "I'm going to stay with my brother for a while," he said. I nodded, because I didn't know what else to do. And then he left. No fight? No goodbye. Just gone. Ryan tried to reach out after that, more than once. But I didn't respond, because whatever I thought I wanted, it didn't feel worth it anymore. Not after seeing what it cost. And in the end, that's what stayed with me. Not the messages, not the lies, but that moment. The moment he looked at me after reading it. Because in that one look, I saw everything. What I had done. What I had lost. And the exact second it was all over, I knew it wasn't a normal conversation the second he said it. Not because of what he asked, but because of how he asked it. Calm. Too calm. Like he had already decided something. And this was just the last step. "I'm going to ask you something," he said, looking straight at me. "And I need you to be honest." My stomach dropped immediately. Because people don't say things like that. Unless they already know something. And in that moment, I felt it. That quiet shift. That realization that this wasn't random. This wasn't casual. This mattered. A lot. "Okay," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, trying not to react too quickly. But I could already feel my heart racing. Daniel didn't look away. Didn't hesitate. "Have you been seeing someone else?" And just like that, everything stopped. Not visibly, not in a way anyone else would notice. But inside, everything froze. Because this was it. Not suspicion, not a vague question. Direct, clear, final. And the worst part? I didn't know how much he knew. That's what made it impossible. Because if I told the truth, I could be confirming something he wasn't even sure about. But if I lied, and he already knew, then it was over anyway. That was the trap. And I knew it. I just didn't know how to get out of it. Her name was Marissa. And it wasn't supposed to turn into this. That's what I kept telling myself. That it was temporary. That it didn't mean anything. That it wouldn't affect my real life. But it already had. In ways I didn't fully understand until that moment. It started small. A conversation that went too far. A connection that felt easier than what I had at home. And instead of pulling back, I leaned into it. Because it felt simple. Because it felt separate. Because I thought I could control it. That was the lie. Because nothing stays separate forever. Not when you keep bringing it closer. Not when it starts bleeding into everything else. And somehow, Daniel had noticed. More than I realized. Looking back, the signs were there. The way he paid more attention. The way he asked small questions that didn't seem important. The way he watched my reactions instead of my answers. He had been building something. Quietly, piece by piece, and now, he was giving me one chance. One opportunity to decide how this ended. Yes, I said. The word came out before I could stop it. Before I could overthink it. Before I could talk myself into another lie. And the second I said it, everything changed. Daniel didn't react right away. He just nodded. Like he expected it. Like this wasn't a surprise. Just confirmation. How long? He asked. 3 months, I said quietly. The truth. Because there was no point in holding anything back now. Not after that. Not after I had already made the decision. Daniel leaned back slightly, taking it in, processing it, still calm, still controlled. In our house? He asked. That question hit harder than anything else, because it meant something deeper, something worse. Yes. And that was the moment everything shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just permanently. Daniel exhaled slowly. I already knew, he said. And something about hearing that made it worse. Because it meant this wasn't about finding out. It was about giving me the chance to tell the truth. I just needed to hear it from you, he added. Silence filled the room. Heavy, unavoidable. I was hoping you wouldn't lie, he said. And that's when it hit me. Really hit me. That there had been another version of this. Another outcome. Where I said no. Where I tried to protect myself. Where I made it worse. And somehow, that version felt even worse than this one. I almost did, I admitted. Daniel nodded slightly. Yeah, he said. I figured. There was no anger in his voice. No yelling, just clarity. And somehow that made it heavier. More final. I don't think I can move past this, he said. Simple. Direct. Final. And I understood. Because I knew. If it were the other way around, I wouldn't be able to either. That night, he packed a bag. Slowly, deliberately. Like he had already made the decision before the conversation even started. I'm staying somewhere else, he said. And I didn't stop him. Because I knew there was nothing left to fix. The house felt different after he left. Quieter. Empty. Not peaceful. Just hollow. Marissa texted me later that night. Everything okay? I stared at it for a long time. Because now, it didn't feel like anything. Not exciting. Not worth it. Just small. I didn't reply. A week later, Daniel asked me to meet him. Not to fix things, just to end them. I've thought about it, he said. I can't do this. No hesitation, no uncertainty, just truth. And I accepted it. Because I knew the moment he gave me that chance, that was the moment everything was decided. Not when he found out, not when he asked, but when I answered. Because he gave me one chance to tell the truth. And that answer was the end of everything. I knew something was wrong the moment my husband offered Daniel the knife. Not because of the knife itself, because of how calm Noah looked holding it. The entire dining room smelled like butter, rosemary, and roasted turkey. Warm light from the chandelier reflected across wine glasses and polished silverware, while my family filled the room with overlapping conversations. Thanksgiving at our house had always been loud, comfortably loud, the kind of noise people mistake for happiness. And sitting 3 seats away from me, laughing with my younger brother like he belonged there, was the man I'd been sleeping with for 9 months. Even now, saying that makes me feel sick. Not just because of the affair, because I invited him there. Into our home. Into our family tradition, across the table from my husband. Daniel worked with me at a commercial design firm downtown. Confident, easy smile. The kind of man who knew exactly how to make every interaction feel intimate. At first, it was lunches, then drinks after work, then hotel rooms booked under fake conference schedules, and eventually the affair became routine enough that I stopped feeling afraid. That's the dangerous stage, not the beginning, the middle. When betrayal starts feeling sustainable. Noah never acted suspicious. That was part of why I became careless. He still kissed me goodbye every morning. Still asked about work. Still brought me coffee on weekends. Still acted like a husband who trusted his wife completely. I understand now that trust and silence aren't always the same thing. Daniel being at Thanksgiving had originally been a joke. One of those, "Wouldn't that be crazy?" comments during an affair. But then a week before Thanksgiving, Daniel mentioned he'd be alone because his parents were overseas. And before I could stop myself, I said, "You should come to ours." The moment the invitation left my mouth, I felt adrenaline rush through me. Danger disguised as excitement. And when I told Noah later that evening, he didn't even hesitate. "Of course," he said, smiling. Calm, perfectly calm. That should have terrified me. Thanksgiving morning felt strangely normal. Football playing quietly in the living room. My mother criticizing my table settings. My father opening wine too early. Everything familiar, everything safe. Which is probably why I ignored the tension building in my chest every time Noah and Daniel spoke casually to each other. Because they got along disturbingly well. Noah laughed at Daniel's jokes, asked him about work, even complimented his watch at one point. Watching them interact made me deeply uncomfortable in a way I couldn't explain. Like I was watching 2 realities overlap that should never touch. At one point while I was in the kitchen, Daniel came up beside me quietly. "You okay?" he whispered. I nodded too quickly. And before either of us realized how risky it was, his hand brushed lightly against my lower back. Tiny movement, barely a second. But when I turned around, Noah was standing in the doorway, watching us. He smiled immediately. Not angrily, not suspiciously. Just smiled, then asked if we needed help carrying dishes. And that moment stayed with me for the rest of the night. Because instinctively, I think I knew then. Dinner started shortly after sunset. The table looked beautiful. Candles, gold napkins, the massive turkey in the center. Everything carefully arranged like a magazine photo. And somehow that made what happened later feel even worse, because humiliation becomes sharper when the setting is elegant. Halfway through dinner, Noah stood up, picked up the carving knife, then looked directly at Daniel. "Actually," he said casually, "why don't you do the honors?" The entire table paused slightly, not dramatically, just enough to notice something unusual. Because Noah always carved the turkey himself, every year, without exception. Daniel laughed awkwardly. "You sure?" Noah nodded. "Absolutely." Then he added, "You've already taken enough from me. Might as well take the turkey too." Silence. Complete silence. The kind where the room itself feels frozen. I stopped breathing. Literally. My entire body locked in place while the sentence replayed in my head. Daniel slowly lowered the knife. My mother looked confused. My father frowned slightly, still trying to process what Noah actually meant. Then Noah sat down calmly, folded his napkin, took a sip of wine, and looked directly at me. "Go ahead," he said softly. "Tell them." The panic that hit me in that moment felt physical, hot, violent, like my entire nervous system collapsing at once. "Noah," I whispered. But my voice barely worked. My younger sister looked between us nervously. "What's happening?" Nobody answered, because everyone already understood. Not fully, but enough. Enough for the air to change. Daniel stepped backward first. Coward. I remember hating him instantly for that. Because the second consequences appeared, he wanted distance from me. Noah finally looked toward my parents, then said calmly, "My wife and Daniel have been sleeping together for 9 months." My mother gasped so sharply she covered her mouth immediately afterward. My father stared directly at me with an expression I still can't fully describe. Not anger, disappointment, shock, grief. And Noah? Still calm. Always calm. That was the worst part. "When did you find out?" My father asked quietly. Noah smiled faintly. "Officially?" Then he looked at Daniel. "Chicago." My stomach dropped instantly. Chicago had been 5 months earlier, meaning he had known for 5 entire months. Suddenly, every strange moment from the past months rushed back into my head. The emotional distance, the politeness, the unnatural calmness. This dinner wasn't discovery. It was closure. "Why would you do this now?" I whispered through tears. Noah leaned back slightly in his chair, then said the sentence that completely broke me. "Because I got tired of watching another man enjoy my family while pretending he respected it." Nobody spoke after that. Not immediately. Because there was nothing left to say. The truth had settled over the table like smoke. Heavy. Impossible to ignore. Daniel finally muttered, "I should go." Noah nodded once. "Yeah," he said calmly. "You probably should have done that 9 months ago." Then Daniel left, just walked straight out the front door. No defense, no apology, nothing. And somehow that hurt worse than the exposure itself. Because in one horrible moment, I realized the fantasy I'd built around the affair only existed while things were easy. The second real consequences arrived. He abandoned me. I started crying harder, trying to explain, trying to apologize. But every word sounded pathetic before it even left my mouth. Noah never raised his voice, never insulted me, never screamed. And honestly, that made it so much worse. Because rage would have meant emotion was still alive. But Noah looked like a man who had already mourned the marriage privately. And then he reached beside his chair and placed a folder on the table. Photos, receipts, printed messages. Everything organized neatly, like evidence prepared for court. I hired someone after Chicago. he said quietly. Again. Calm, controlled, prepared. My mother started crying. My sister left the table entirely. My father wouldn't even look at me anymore. And there I was, sitting in the middle of the destruction I created while the turkeys slowly went cold in front of us. A few minutes later, Noah finally stood up, looked around the room, then at me. The divorce papers are already signed, he said. I just wanted one honest Thanksgiving before this family changed forever. That sentence destroyed me, because suddenly I realized this dinner hadn't been revenge to him. It was goodbye. Months later, after the divorce, I asked Noah why he used the turkey. Why expose everything like that? In front of family, during Thanksgiving. And his answer still stays with me. Because carving the turkey is tradition, he said. Then he looked at me carefully. And I wanted everyone at the table to finally see what was really being divided. I still think about the silence after his first comment. That horrible frozen silence where everyone realized the dinner wasn't normal anymore. Where the room stopped being a family gathering and became the ending of a marriage. But the worst part? It wasn't my family staring at me. It wasn't Daniel leaving. It wasn't even the humiliation. It was realizing my husband had probably stopped loving me months earlier. And I was too distracted by excitement and secrecy to notice I'd already lost him long before Thanksgiving dinner ever started.